Good morning, everybody. It's your buddy Choppadong. We are coming at you with a 5-game hyper simple breakdown for baseball DFS. Brought to you by the only DFSarmy.com, your one-stop shop for everything DFS. So we've got PGA kicking off today. We've got NASCAR coming this weekend, MMA probably coming this weekend. Every sport, we've got a ton of experts, ton of coaches in there to help you learn the sport and learn to be a better player. I guess basically raise your edge, if you will. If you want to become a VIP, you click the link down there in the comments section, dfsarmy.com. Use the coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P. Trigger that 20% off discount. Get in here, start interacting with the coaches, and start learning, becoming a better player today. I run through a very, very simple, repeatable system. I show it to you guys daily out here on YouTube. Well, almost daily out here on YouTube. And we're going to run through it today. Come back, though, for VIPs because you're going to get part 2. Part 2 is going to be how to control the stacking, how to set up to pull in the one-offs and the stacks that you want in our Domination Station Optimizer for those of you that are learning how to run multiple entries. Those of you that don't know what multi-entry is, it's obviously putting in 10, 20, 30, 50, 150 lineups, if you will. And what you're really trying to do, in my opinion, this isn't fact, but in my opinion, you can spread out and you can treat it a lot like cash because you're diversifying your player pool. You're playing a safer game. Not all of your eggs are in one basket. So what you're really doing is you're taking a lot of different shots at the grand prize. So if I can put in $20 or $30 or $100 or whatever and get back a big chunk of it, even on my bad days, then I am continually taking prolonged shots at higher and higher and higher ROIs. To me, it's better than head-to-heads. A lot of coaches will disagree with that because head-to-heads are easier to win than a tournament, blah, blah, blah. But the point is, if I put in 100 head-to-heads and get back $40 on a bad day, or I put in $100 and get back $40 on a bad day of MME, they're the same, other than the fact that with head-to-heads, if I sweep them and I double all 100 of them, I produced a top 1% lineup and barely doubled my money. Whereas in an MME format or in a GPP type format, if I produce a top 1% lineup, I probably got back 6x, 8x, 10x on that entry alone. Maybe it doesn't cover all of the entries that I put in there, but it gets back a significant portion. It helps me feel like a better winning player. It helps me feel like I'm getting onto the right track. But number 2, it has the potential to keep going higher and eventually win that GPP and return even higher ROIs. So for me, mass multi-entering is cash games with higher upside. You've got the safety of a floor, not as safe, but you've got the safety of a floor, especially if you get a little experience, learn how to do it right. But you've always got the upside to win some pretty big money. I don't know. It's working out for me. It's what I'm starting to preach to VIPs inside DFSarmy.com. So jump in here, talk with me. I can tell you what I'm doing. In fact, why don't I just jump out here and show you what I'm doing. You're sick of looking at my ugly. That's not me, by the way. That's just an avatar I'd thrown at me as a joke. I thought it fit the personality really, really well, so I kept it. That's not me, though. But this is me, so follow me out on Twitter. Like and subscribe the videos down below. Ring the notification bell so you get notifications drop to your phone when a new video drops. And let's move on to the hyper simple way of looking at things. Really quickly, we would like to look at weather. And the 640 game's not on the main slate. Green, green, dome, green, dome, done. No weather issues. All pitchers are in play. If I go to Notorious's first look article, I can sort by K percentage if I want to. But and then that's how I determine some of this, which I'll show you here in a minute when I'm looking at pitchers, but also I'm looking down the offenses. I'm looking for high Sierras, high team Wobas. I'm looking for pitchers that struggle against both sides of the plate. I don't see them today. Down here, maybe the Dodgers, not on my slate. But look at this, lots of reds, lots of decent pitching out there tonight. It's going to be a little bit harder to find bats. Okay, take note of Aaron Nola down here with having no trouble with righties or lefties right now. Because when we get into that, we're going to look for pitchers, then we're going to look for bats. Okay, and then we're going to look for bats by looking at bad pitchers. We'll look for good pitchers, then bad pitchers, and that'll tell us where to go for our bats. Hopefully. So when I look at, I can also use the research station. I can go to the pitchers tab. And I can sort by a whole bunch of numbers here as well. You'll see me go back to this tab, or the trends tab is generally where I live. I look at the L7 Wobas when I'm looking for specific bats inside specific offenses. Let me go ahead and turn that one off so when we get back to it, it's ready to go. Pitchers, pitchers, pitchers. Let's start with Garrett Cole. All right. He's got a 10-6 salary on FanDuel, 10-2 on DraftKings. It's up there pretty high. Do we have to use him? I'd like not to, but if I have to, I will. Minus 140 Vegas odds are pretty decent. 604 K score is phenomenal. 84 DFSA grade is good. Matching up against Cleveland, who's not swinging a hot bat right now. Yeah, very, very solid pitcher tonight. Very solid option. Let's see if we can find better for cheaper. Not going to find cheaper necessarily here on FanDuel. And I get the underdog in a 100-point lower case. No thanks, not on FanDuel. It'd be Garrett Cole. Same price, better potential. Bauer would be a more or less a GPP type of pivot. He's a good pitcher. He's not as strong as Garrett Cole in this matchup right now. If I come all the way down to the Smith dude, who's he in Miami? Where is he? 8,200, 7,300 might be an SP2. If you feel that you want the 200 underdog, you want to really roll the dice, run Bauer and Smith together and get the massive underdogs on both sides of the slate. You do get a 500 K score. You do get decent DFSA grade. Philly's not hitting out of a wet paper bag right now. Houston is. That's dangerous. But you might want to save a little bit of money here. You'd be contrarian. But let's look at the minus 200 favorite. $500 more for Aaron Nola. 9,100. It's okay. So this is priced down. This is usually a bad sign. DraftKings is a little bit more volatile in their pricing than FanDuel, so we can rely on them to kind of tell us what they think of the matchup. And they think this is a worse matchup than FanDuel thinks it is. Priced up is okay for Aaron Nola. DK got with the program and said this is a great matchup going against Miami. Probably your chalk pitcher of the night because it's $2,000 savings off of Garrett Cole. They're going to probably be 1 and 2. 9,100 on DraftKings, a little bit of a savings there, $1,000, $1,100. Minus 200 favorite, 577, which is awfully close to the 604. A 100 DFSA grade. Now I see why, because it's taking into effect the Miami bats, but also the price and the odds and the K score, and you put it all together, and for the $2,000, I think I like it. I feel pretty comfortable in it. If you notice down there, Nola's not having trouble with righties or lefties. Miami's not a juggernaut offensive team. Philly's at home. We got ourselves a pretty good matchup here. So I don't know that I need to go away from this. I'll probably take some shares of Cole. I'll put him in the optimizer. I'll mix them up. Would love to get some Cole and Nola. That'd be pretty sweet on DraftKings. Tanaka, underdog, very, very low K score. That's because LA does not strike out. LA's strikeout percentage was like a 15%. So this isn't a good matchup for Tanaka. At least not compared to these guys. Porcello, maybe another SP2 type. Way down there on FanDuel. Priced up comparatively on DraftKings. It's a good sign for Porcello. We're not really afraid of Detroit. Detroit's got some hot bats rolling in it, but we're not too terribly afraid. Minus 200 favorite, 484 K scores up there. So maybe you want another 1,500 or another 2,000 off of Nola. That's almost 4,000 off of Garrett Cole. Maybe Nola, Porcello are your starters over on DraftKings. That's not a bad way to go. So when I'm looking at the overall between cost, Vegas, and strikeout potential, I've got strikeout potential in all these guys except Tanaka. I've got pricing that varies across the map, and I've got Vegas odds that if I stick with the favorites anywhere between a minus 140 and a minus 200, I'm set up pretty well. I'm facing offenses like Cleveland, who's not hitting all that well, but they are dangerous. Miami, who's not that good, and Detroit, who's not maybe that great, but is in spots okay. I don't mind it. I like this spread tonight. I can do a lot of things with pitchers, which means I can do a lot of things with bats. And I'm going to need to, because as you see, we flip this on its head. If we dive into the research station here and we look at the pitchers tab again, and we look for the lower ranked pitchers down here, there's only one. I usually look for under 30. Well, today's not even giving me under 50. But I would pick on Jordan Zimmerman, and that probably puts me on Boston, right? Now, I've got to really start digging for a lot of different things to find the secondary bat. Boston's clearly going to be my top stack tonight. Houston would be, but they're facing Bauer. He's a competent pitcher. He's pretty damn good. New York facing LA maybe. But again, I might look at the bad category. 16.3, Caleb Smith has some bad going for him. 16.1, Porcello has some bad going for him. means there's a potential to blow up tonight. So maybe in my GPPs, I decide to take some Philly and gamble that they figure it out tonight, or Detroit and look for hot bats there, maybe secondary stacks. And maybe you just want to go with the hotter hand in a Houston and hope they get to Bauer. It's going to be up to you. I look for Sierras. None of these are really, really high. So there's just not a lot to go with when it really comes down to it tonight. So I might just wind up going, with some of the other little numbers here that I'm finding along the way, and again, gambling. Or I might just set up the domination station optimizer to kind of mix and match and just throw me different secondary stacks. I might have 60% Boston and go all in on them, and then have 15% New York, 15% LA, 15% Houston, 15% Philly, 15% Detroit, and just kind of let it throw a bunch of junk at me and see what sticks to the wall. That's one way to it. That's how I landed on Arizona last night. I didn't have the courage to really call it out. I mean, I did mention as like a tiny, tiny stack potential, but I ended up when I built my lineups, I ended up with a lot more of them than I wanted, because the optimizer and the projections were throwing a bunch of them in there for value, and they were putting it up against all of my Houston and all of my New York Mets. Way to let me down. But Boston and Houston came through, which were my other two main stacks, and I had some Arizona with them, and boom, won some money last night. That's how it works. Sometimes you get a little bit lucky, but it's better off if you can stack the odds in your favor to put the majority of options in good places, good investments, good options in your back pocket, and then let optimizers mix it up. It's what I do with bigger lineup numbers. When I put 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 lineups into contests, that's kind of how I'm doing it. It works just the same, and the research becomes a little bit easier, honestly. It's nice that I've got the foundation of hand building for all those years, because I can still kind of see what I want to accomplish. But I mean, there's just not much for bats. So if we dive into the trends tab, maybe we'll find something there. Maybe something will tip our hat. If I look at Miami, I will go team by team typically, and I see Brian Anderson only. Fine. Then I'll come down to Philadelphia, and I'll see pretty much nobody, right? Knapp, Cesar Hernandez, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I did notice that, none of these guys are really rolling that well, so maybe they'd be a little contrarian getting after Caleb Smith, meaning they would be a little lower owned because people are maybe a little afraid of the offense. The offense can do damage. It's just not doing damage right now. I don't know. That's the kind of gamble tonight's right for it. We can talk about that theory on a smaller slate of 5 games, whereas on bigger slates of 14, 15, 12 type games, you can't. Ownership gets so spread out. Nobody's coming down to a Philadelphia because they got to get over Boston to be in a great spot. Houston might be in a great spot. Seattle might be in a great spot. Texas might be in a great spot. New York Yankees might be in a great spot, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And next thing you know, it makes some sense to take a shot on Philadelphia. There's some logic there, but it's like 8th on my list. Why would I pass up 7 teams? See, I'll play the odds a little bit more on those bigger slates. I think that's why people say they're more cash game slates, because you're just kind of playing the best plays. You're not really taking a lot of wild, crazy GPP shots at stuff. I mean, you can, but you're hoping that 5 or 6 offenses do poorly and your offense does really, really, or you're hoping you catch lightning. On a smaller slate, it makes a lot more sense to do that because you can get against that chalk. You can identify the chalk tonight. It's going to probably be Nola, probably going to be Garrett Cole, probably going to be some ownership on a Trevor Bauer. So you can kind of go against those guys and maybe stack against a couple of them that you think might be more prone to blow up than the others. And you might look at a whole host of reasons for that. If I look at Detroit, going against Boston and Porcello might be one that somebody uses an SP2 on DraftKings. I can look for some numbers here and see some guys that are hitting okay. If Brandon Dixon gets a start, he'll be in my lineup. If Ronnie Rodriguez gets another start, he'll be in my lineup. Jordan Hicks, Gordon Beckham, Gordon Beckham, fine. I might even include a Miguel Cabrera, 310 WOB over 2 weeks going into a 362. I'm looking for that ascending number. Now, I don't want the 360 is kind of okay. I'd rather over 400. 313 is not good. So the 215 into a 313, yeah, it means Josh Harrison is getting a little bit hotter, but he ain't hot yet. He's just maybe starting to slip into borderline competent right now. When I look at Boston, it gets cold enough outside here in St. Louis to get some clam chowder today for sure, if anybody wants to ship me some over. Mitch Moreland, Mookie Betts, and JD Martinez. And I'll show you a little trick here that I did. 403 is not great. We know they're heating up. They had a good game last night. We know Mookie Betts has been heating up. 319 to 398 is significant. 330 to 400 is significant. 4 to 3, staying right at about a 400 is JD Martinez, just a consistent hitter, right? 350 into 380 is starting to heat up maybe a little bit for a Devers. 420 to 350 dropped off. 340, 340, 370 to 330. See, there's nothing much else down in here. These would be the cores of my stacks. Anybody else is getting kind of lucky. But I can kick over here to the batter matchups. And I can look for something that I will occasionally look at. See, it's already on Boston, because I was already prepping to show you this. I scroll over here to the ISO matchup. Matchup ISO. What is ISO? ISO is power. And over a 2-year sample size, this is the batter's power numbers. JD Martinez, 300 ISO is great. Over 200 is elite. 220 for Betts. 200 something for Moreland. This is good stuff, right? Chavis, on a small sample size, has decent ISO. And then I look over here at what the pitcher gives up to handedness. That's why these numbers are different. What is it? To righties, 208, and to lefties, 231. He gives up elite ISO, elite power. Jordan Zimmermann gets shelled. It's a good sign. So when I take their ISOs and average them into the ISO given up by the pitcher, I land on pretty big numbers. So I'm looking for anything over 200. 250 is great. JD Martinez is in a good spot, and he's starting to heat up, or he's staying at the 400 wOBA line. Look, good spot for Mookie Betts, and he's starting to heat up. Good spot for Mitch Moreland, and he's starting to heat up again. These are the situations we look for. And this is one way to do it. There's a billion ways to do it, but these are quick, these are easy, puts me right on these 3 guys, and then if I saw Benintendi, Bogart, Stevers somewhere in my lineups, okay, fine, I can live with it. Steve Pearce, I noticed over here on a BVP page that I look at. Scroll down, look at Boston's BVP. There, I said it again, Boston. Steve Pearce, 12 at-bats. I filtered it out by 10 or higher. It's a link our VIPs can get, whatever. 4 for 12, 2 bombs, 550 wOBA. That's what I'm looking at. Yes, it's a small sample size. I know that, but I don't care, because if I'm surrounding him with Mitch Moreland and Mookie Betts and JD Martinez and Steve Pearce somehow gets a start. I don't even know if the dude's healthy right now, but I thought I heard his name mentioned yesterday, so I looked him up today just in case I see him pop into a lineup. And if I see him pop into a lineup, I will include him in a stack. Why? Because he just might go boom. I mean, he's only seen the guy for 12 at-bats, and he's thumped him pretty hard, right? I will confirm these types of results a little bit. So if I am running the optimizer and I see that Steve Pearce pops into some stacks, I will let it stay there, because I've already done my research, and that name doesn't surprise me as a, why is he in here all of a sudden? I know why he's in there. Is this starting to make sense? This is how we do this process day in and day out and day in and day out. So I go through Cleveland. I'm a little hesitant to go up against a Garrett Cole, but I might have some sort of a contrarian stack. It's a 5-game slate. It makes sense. Could happen. Probably won't, but it could. Whoopsie. If I go back to my trends tab, that's where I need to find Cleveland. And I look for hot bats, and I don't see any, which makes me actually feel better about Garrett Cole. I look at Carlos Gonzalez, 290 to 360. He's kind of starting to get there. But then I go back and looked at his BVP, and it was crud. It was junk. So I look at Hughes. So he's not hitting the ball all that well. He may be starting to hit it a little better, but he's not facing Garrett Cole with any success. I look at Houston, Tyler White, George Springer, Bregman, Brantley. This would be the contrarian stack. If people are afraid of Bowers, this would be the type of stack that I would use. Bauer, not plural, singular. Sorry to insult the Bauer family. But this would be the kind of stack that I would use. If ownership is projected to be a little lower, I would jump on this because they're hot bats. And if Bauer slips up a little bit, and the GPP narrative, people are going to love this. If you remember last year, all the Twitter battles going on between Bauer and accusing all of the Houston Astros of spin rate and using pine tar and sticky to get better spin rate. Think those guys might be gunning for him a little bit tonight? It's a narrative. It's like the bobblehead or the birthday boy narrative. It's a far-fetched idea, but it makes a little bit of sense. I don't know if it'll pan out. But these would be the bats that I'd be using. When I look at New York, Yankees have some bats. Gardner, Estrada, if he gets a start. Clint Frazier just went on the IL. Luke Voigt, Tauchman, Tukman, whatever the heck you want to call him. Not terrible. If he's included in some stacks, it's fine. I would run back out to that batters tab down here, and I'd look at his matchup ISO. And I'd see who of these guys is hitting for some power against whatever Cahill's given up. And just cross-reference it. Doesn't take you but 10 seconds. Listea would work if he's going to be in the lineup, and Goodwin. That's about it. I might use Lucroy because he's cheap, and a 300 to a 394 is fine. In fact, I need to write him down to my list. But I would say Mr. Simmons down here is cheap. Hit 2 bombs last night, right? 2 for 2 with 2 bombs at the beginning, his first 2 at-bats. And is 4 for 12 with a double and a bomb and a 421 WOBA off of Tanaka. So if he appeared in a stack or appeared as a one-off, fine. I'd let it ride. Texas. Joey Gallo still at the top of the list. Hunter Pence, Danny Santana. Sin Chu Chu. 420 down to 370. I'd probably be off of Chu, especially if his BVP isn't that great. So like I said, I just kind of use this stuff in conjunction with itself to help complete the story. Let's round off with Seattle here. Narvaez is still hitting the ball well. Tom Murphy, if he gets the start. Vogelbach is heated up again. Haniger's looking good. Jay Bruce, if he's not questionable. These are all fine. These are bats that I'd be using, especially if Texas throws out. They haven't announced the pitcher yet for whatever reason. Maybe they have, but according to our data right now, they haven't. If it's a chump, I love it. If it's somebody who maybe they're doing a committee by bullpen kind of thing, I would love it. I'd be in there. Hopefully Seattle would turn it around. They haven't been scoring runs the past week, but hopefully they would turn it around in a soft matchup, and their guys are still carrying decent WOBAs, and they put something together for me. These would be the places I would go. So I will actually mark down Seattle as a secondary stack. Boston main stack, New York, LA, Seattle secondary stacks. Boom, 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 done. Throw in a little bit of your BVP, like your Gordon Beckham you saw on the list with the Steve Pearce, if you notice down there. 15 for 32, 6 doubles, a bomb, and a 508 WOBA. Hello. Great one-off. I would take his numbers, as you'll see in part 2 for VIPs. I'll jack his numbers in the projections, and I will pull him in as much as I can, as much as it makes sense to. I would also look and stay away in Houston from a Jose Altuve. He last week, he has a 2-week WOBA of 420, and last week it dropped to a 280. That is a cold sign. That's the kind of sign. When this number here starts off high and then gets low over here, bad sign. Get off of that bat. It's cold. 7 days. It only takes about 2 or 3 days to come back. You don't miss the train for long. That's the beauty of this metric. That's why I preach it. I'm on a train, off a train, on a train, off a train, and I don't miss it by a few days on either side. If it gets cold, I get off it pretty quick. If it gets hot, I get on it pretty quick. And then I only hope that it just kind of stays that way for a while. It's kind of like sitting at a craps table in a casino. You hope to catch a hot shooter, because if you can catch a hot shooter, you can ride that train for quite a while. But some nights you just can't catch it. Exact same thing in DFS. Some nights you just miss that hot shooter. A day early or a day late, or you can't hold on to his streak for just long enough, but some nights you can catch it. And on those nights you can catch it, you get yourself into some MME GPPs where you can throw a lot of lineups at it and you get a little bit of your money back most of the nights. Some nights you almost break even, some nights you grind up a little bit of profit, but you're always gunning in there for the big one. And when you hit the big one, maybe a couple of times a year, it boosts your bankroll beyond your imagination. That's how I like to play right now. I can go back to laddering. I can go back to cash. I can do all that stuff. I can certainly teach it if that's what you want to learn. It's a very good place to start if you're new and you want to reset the system and start from the fundamentally sound. I can help you do that. Hell, I invented the ladder system. I'm a cash game guy at heart. I'm learning how to use GPPs as cash games. As the intelligence of the community continues to grow, we've got to stay ahead of the curve. This is one way you can get ahead of the curve. But you can only do it as a VIP inside DFSArmy.com using that coupon code SHOP, round it off with a 20% off discount. Get in here, start talking to me. I'll talk back, and we can have a great old time plugging the leaks, fixing your games, setting you on a better course, talking about which games you like to play, which games you think make more sense, which games I think more sense, and we can go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and be lifelong friends like they say in the movie Grease. Totally up to you, though. It's all on you as to whether you want to raise your edge and invest in your game. I'm in here waiting for you. Come on in, click the link in the comment section, ring the notification bell, subscribe and like the channel while you're down there. I appreciate that, of course. Pass me out on social media if you think this is worth spreading around. I appreciate that as well. And hopefully I catch you guys on the inside. Thanks for listening. Come back for part 2 VIPs. We'll do that one here next. Take care.